you think is the most responsible? Why would they want him gone?
I think Charlie was not allowed to be anything but a Christian Zionist, and he was changing in the last few weeks. Everything began ratcheting up after Tucker Carlson hit the stage.
That pissed him off.
It was like a full court press effort to lie about everything. I do not like the way Turning Point is behaving. I've made that clear, and nobody is going to emotionally manipulate me and tell me to attack Turning Point would be to attack his legacy. Charlie told me years ago he was having a ton of visions and was telling me Turning Point was going to be the death of him. He knew he was going to die young, and strangely knew that I was going to be the only person to defend him.
Candace, thank you for having me here.
I'm excited, and thank you for making it work on short notice.
Of course. These are crazy times, so I totally, we got to be careful about where we're at, right?
Right.
So it's been a while since we last spoke. Last time you were on, I remember we did After Hours where you were saving a few women's lives, and I did want to tell you this on camera. One of the girls that you spoke to actually quit OnlyFans on that day.
Wow.
Yeah.
It was a good conversation.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people think that, I guess, those conversations are not worth it or the show is all theater. But for me, I want to sit across from these young women because anybody's life could have ended that way. You know what I mean? Like I could have ended up being one of these OnlyFans girls if there weren't so many like life interventions, because it's just being sold to women so much that this is the easy way out. You know what I mean? So
yeah, but I wanted to make sure I told you that, on camera, that she literally quit like not too long after you did that show. So that's great, saving lives.
That makes me happy.
So kind of with that, I saw that you had did a debate on Jubilee with a bunch of feminists. Obviously, we're in the modern day age. Things have changed quite a bit. We've both been pretty critical of feminism, but I think with what you're doing, you're able to really reach a demographic of women that just guys like me and Andrew Tate and others just aren't going to reach because, we're abrasive in the way that we get it. So they might want, another female's perspective on, the detriments of feminism and everything else like that. So kind of given how society is now, how do you see feminism today with young women? And then what do you predict is going to happen in the next 5-10 years? Are we getting better? Is it getting worse? What are your thoughts in general on that?
So I was actually very interested in Tate culture, I guess I'm going to call it. So I'm going to put you in that orbit of Tate culture, all of these male influencers that were coming out and calling girls bitchs and hoes and all this stuff. And people sat back and were like, oh my God, this is horrible, whatever. But I'm like, wait a second, whatever you think about him, whatever you think about Tristan, whatever you think about Myron, this culture got very big very quickly, and there's got to be something there, right? There has to be. So that was the reason why I flew out to meet Andrew Tate. There was all these conspiracies that I knew him before and all. I met Andrew a total of 2 times before I did his show. My husband hung out with him maybe 3 times in his life before him and I met. He was actually friends with PJW. And that's how I met Andrew.
Gotcha.
Like, so my husband was actually friends with PJW. And I just wanted to know what it was, because I'm never a person that will dismiss something on its face and call it a name. Like, there has to be some substance here. And what was actually happening was you got Andrew Tate and Tristan Tate and you got Myron Gaines because you perpetuated a culture of Lena Dunham's, right? So you're acting like men just got tired of it, is what happened. And finally, men looked around and somebody stood up and said, it's actually okay to be a man and you don't have to listen to any of these women. Now, you may not have liked how they said it. You may not have liked that they were doing this on top of Lamborghinis. But the reality is that what sat beneath that was a horribly toxic culture where women were dictating the terms to men. And every time a man did something that actually felt natural to them, you called it toxic masculinity, and books were written, and Lena Dunham is writing articles, and there's a show about this, and Lena Dunham's naked on Instagram. I wrote a whole chapter about Lena Dunham in my book, and she's naked on Instagram, and she's lecturing you if you don't want to see her, overweight, naked, and tatted up. So you can't blame the culture, Tate culture, until you are ready to address where this actually came from, which was women constantly bashing men over the head and telling them that masculinity, full stop, was wrong.
Given the problems that we have, obviously, whether it's me or Tate or other people, will kind of come in and say, hey, this is what you need to do as a guy. This is how the modern day marketplace is now when it comes to dating. What's your approach to kind of combating this problem from a female perspective?
First, you have to understand the origin of feminism, right? You have to understand that this was not a culture and an ideology that came because they wanted women to have equal rights with men, okay? This was a CIA-sponsored PSYOP. Gloria Steinem was sponsored by the CIA, okay? These protests were sponsored by men in government. a lot of them homosexual, actually. And the reason for that was simply because they wanted to tax, it was actually twofold, I would say. They wanted to tax household income both ways. And also they wanted women to, instead of focusing on their kids, which comes natural to women, right, to be the quote unquote, like I say, CEO of the household, they wanted to remove that and to have the children given to the government for 6 hours a day. Beyond 6 hours a day, 6 hours a day, plus whatever sports activities, which gives the government full control over the minds of the children. This came straight from the Pale of Settlement. After they assassinated the Tsar, you had these Jewish women like Emma Goldman, who came over to America. Emma Goldman was the mentor to what's her face from Planned Parenthood. I'm blanking on her name for a moment. I'm going to say Margaret Sanger. That was her mentor. Mm-hmm. And so this was, in fact, a very radical communist movement that came to America and sought to overthrow families, family institutions, strong men, feminine women, stands in the way of government and absolute control.
In your book, Make 'Em a Sandwich, what are some of the things that you tell the women? Because I'm assuming it's a book that's going to be centered around how women can kind of get in a marketplace, find a long-term partner, get married. What are some of the strategies that you tell women to implement to find a partner? You don't have to give it all away. Maybe one or two.
I don't even try in my book to sell them a strategy or a technique. I just tell the truth. So here's the history of feminism. Here's what we were told in school. Here's actually how it went down, right? Knowledge is power. I give them the actual statistics of the fact that what was sold to you was you were going to be just like a man and you were going to be happier. Women are actually more miserable than they've ever been. If you go back and you ask most women about their grandmothers, they remember grandma being happy, right? So what they actually sold to you, now you've achieved this equality, quote unquote equality, and women have never been more miserable, and women are popping more pills than they were popping and finding it harder to find a partner and wondering why. Well, it's because you attacked natural masculinity. You told men that they shouldn't be allowed to lead. Women have to lead. And actually, you didn't want that, right? You were convinced psychologically in a classroom, as I was back when I wanted to be a feminist, or I thought feminism was cool. And you should know that. And I think that that's how you change things without trying to say, here's a strategy and here's how we're going to move forward. Let people know true knowledge, let people know true history. And I think the rest of the stuff happens naturally, or I hope.
For you on your journey, when did you figure out that feminism was a lie? Like, was there a certain event that triggered it that you were like, holy crap, this is BS?
I actually tell the story in this book. I think I do, actually. I think it's in this book, or it's in my last book, actually. It's in Blackout, of this teacher that I had. And I was required to take a Feminism 101. It was called Women's Studies. Maybe it was Women's Studies 201 at the University of Rhode Island. And at that time, I was like, yeah, I'm a feminist, of course. Who doesn't want equality as they sold it? Yeah. I get into this classroom, and this teacher, I realized very quickly, was not actually motivated by wanting equality. I was in a classroom where she was trying to convince me that every problem that we had in society was due to men. This was a literal class that was designed to basically teach women to hate men. Yeah. Like, no matter, all you had to do to get an A was she would introduce any problem. She could have lost her keys that morning and been like, why did this happen?
Patriarchy.
Well, you know who designed cars? You know who designed cars? Do you know who designed the whole concept of a car key, and who designed the couch that you lost it in this morning? It was men. It became to a point where, for me, it was like laughable. Yeah. But there was this one particular class where it clicked for me. Because when I was in college, I had an eating disorder. So I was sitting in her class, and I was anorexic, and she gets into this topic of anorexia and eating disorders. And she gave us some statistic about the percentage of women that have eating disorders. And I'm making this up now, but it was something like 80% of people who have eating disorders are women. And she asked the class, why is that? And we were supposed to say, and she did say, that it was because men control the advertising agency and men want women to be skinny. And it had literally, I'm sitting here having this experience, nothing to do with a man. Like, nothing, no man said you're fat, you have to be skinny. That is completely made up. And I'm listening to her try to psychologically convince me that my eating disorder came from a man when it just factually didn't. Most people who suffer with anorexia know it's a control mechanism. It actually has nothing even to do with weight. It just is like, this is the one thing you can control. And I just kind of called her out on that, and I raised my hand. I was like, whoa, wait a second. Okay, well, let's look at another statistic. What percentage of people are juicing up with steroids, right? That's not a super healthy thing to do. If we said that 90% of it was men, would you have presented to the class that it was because of women? right? Because women are telling them they have to look like this. And she was, I mean, when I say she went white and she said to me, and I always tell the story on stage, she said to me, I feel like you were sent to me from the men's department.
Of course.
Yeah. And I told her I told her back that I was sent to her from the common sense department.
Yeah.
And that everything couldn't be because of men. So I think that was kind of the first time that it clicked for me that this was some sort of a psychological program. In many ways, I was actually saved by...
And how old were you at that point?
I was in college,
20s?
so I was 19.
Okay.
Yeah,
all right.
it was the first year of college.
Okay.
So yeah, it was a prerequisite. So it was interesting for me, I think.
Did that make you shift your priorities? Like,
I was never a gun-ho feminist. I just was like in the back of my mind, same way that I was liberal. Like I was never voting Democrat, but if you had asked me, what do you think about this? I would have very quickly been like, of course we need feminism.
Yeah.
And then I was kind of thinking, man, these women are really annoying in this classroom. Because then there were the majors that were there, you know, the people, these women that were tatted up and like growing their armpit hair out. You know, we had those people in class and I was like, I don't like any of these people. So it made me think that there was something more to the feminist movement, I think, which was indoctrination.
Interesting. Okay. So I think you've been able to do what every woman dreams of: have a family, have children, have your dream man, but simultaneously being able to also, you know, run a business and do what you want to do. And I noticed when you were debating on Jubilee, some of them tried to say, oh, well, you're a hypocrite. You're over here talking about feminism being bad, blah, 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 blah. But, you know, you obviously have a lot of things set up where you maximize your ability to be with your family, right? You do your show, get out of there, spend time with your family. What would you say to the people that sit there and try to call you a hypocrite because, you know, you're successful in your own right, but you've been able to also balance a family, which many women can't do. They want to do it, but they can't do it. What would your response be to those critics?
First and foremost, do not allow people to rule you by exceptions. What I mean by that is, it is such a mistake to look at my life and to say, Candace did this, and so therefore I can do this. My life is actually exceptional, right? We are sitting in my house. I do things on my own terms. I wake up in the morning. I get to homeschool my kids, right? I'm homeschooling my children for hours. That's now very important to me. I get to do a podcast from home. And I am actually doing something that I enjoy, right? What is the number one thing? If you find any woman that makes it and she's successful, what is she doing? She's tapping into her femininity, communication. Women communicate more than men. I have a whole chapter on this. If you have a daughter and a son, you know this. Girls start speaking faster, and we will speak more words from men for the rest of our lives. And when you actually look, and I ask people in this chapter, if I ask you the question right now, who is the most successful man in the world? Just give me your answer. If you have to name a couple of them.
I was going to say, like, from a financial perspective?
Yeah, sure. Full stop. If I said who's the most successful man in the world,
you could say like the richest guy in the world, who would be Elon, even though it pains me to say that. But
okay, no, but that's the right. You would say Elon, or you would say
something based on meritocracy, finances, and
you would
status.
say Jeff Bezos.
Precisely.
Everyone would say the same answers, right? Yep. If I ask you who is the most successful woman in the world, what would you say?
That's where it gets true. Yeah, right. I see what you're saying.
Like, what is it? Like, off the top of your mind, like what are the names that come to your mind?
Yeah, it's an ambiguous, like, you're like, okay, well, are we going to go off career? Are we going to go off where?
But most people would say like Taylor Swift or Oprah. Mm-hmm. These women are nowhere near the richest women in the world. Nobody knows the name of the richest woman in the world. Mm-hmm. And so I go about through this in my chapter. Yeah, you'd say Beyonce. I'm like, these are the names that you would say off the top of your head if I asked you who's the most successful. Nobody knows. Everybody knows the names of the most the richest men in the world, and yet nobody knows the names of the richest women in the world.
Good
right?
point.
And nobody knows the names of them. And the answer is a Russian woman. And I talk about this in my book. I'm like, nobody knows her name. And the women that you do name actually all tapped into their femininity. Taylor Swift was writing songs about relationships. Mm-hmm. She was writing songs about looking for love. Mm-hmm. And women flocked to this. Oprah was communicating to the housewife, right? She was speaking about issues. They're tapping in actually to the one thing that actually you think they're standing against. Oh, they're the ultimate feminists. No, they tapped into their femininity and found success, actually. And women do not, when we think about success, we don't measure it in terms of finances. That's why these women, we think, are the most, quote unquote, successful women in the world. Mm-hmm. Whereas men naturally think finances. Oh, it's Jeff Bezos, it's Elon Musk. So I do a chapter and I speak about that in my book about who the richest woman in the world is. And then the next 10 women who are the richest in the world are all rich because of who they divorced, right?
Yep. Yeah.
So what is the picture that we're recognizing here? We don't measure success in the same terms as men measure success, nor should we. And it's important for women not to think that becoming financially rich somehow means that you are successful or that you have triumphed something in life.
And since having children, like, how has that like shifted your priorities as far as, I mean, and you can go into as much detail or as little as you want, as far as like how you've kind of prioritized child rearing versus like maybe your career and doing social media as much? Because I noticed, you know, before you were super, super active, you still post obviously every day, but now it's like, you know, you have other priorities. So how has that kind of shifted?
Yeah, my family is my number one priority. I would say having kids made me more secure than ever before. I just don't care about the noise. None of it matters anymore. And also, I have real stake in this fight. Before, these were just ideas. America shouldn't be run like this. This is why, this is what's bad. Once you have kids, you have actually a real stake in the future of America. So when I am podcasting, the subjects that I am covering to me are existential, right? Are we being ruled by pedophiles and criminals? That's now existential for me. What is happening in the school systems? What is happening in these churches? What is going on? This is now existential because my children will inherit the America that I fight for or the America that I remain silent about.
And just to kind of finish off with the feminism real quick. So what do you think are the top 3 things holding women back from fulfillment and happiness right now?
The number one thing I would say that's holding women back would be not understanding the history of feminism, I think. I think once you know that, everything, like, knowledge is actually power. I would say the second thing that's holding them back is the psychology of peer pressure. And that is the psychology and the peer pressure starts when we are in school with women being told you have to go to college, you have to have a career. The last thing you should be thinking about, you have plenty of time. You don't actually have plenty of time. Biologically speaking, you literally don't have plenty of time. Men might have plenty of time, biologically speaking, but your body is telling you don't. And so I think, and then that kind of gets into the education. The education system truly is just Soviet propaganda in the classrooms. So those would be the top 2 things. And so they're ignoring their gut instinct and following the herd.
So understanding what feminism is and how it came into place makes it a lot easier to understand everything else. All right, fair enough. What do you think so far about this switch in politics? What do you think so far about this administration with Trump? Good, bad, the ugly?
Sad. Honestly, the first thing that I would say is that it makes me sad because obviously I spent a lot of time helping Trump get elected, trying to help Trump get elected. And Trump is...
I see a photo right here, yeah.
Yeah, he's a part of my political story, right? A part of my political awakening, if you want to call it that. And it feels to me like when he said, what Epstein files, are we still talking about the Epstein files? It was just like we were so close. We did everything we could. And we were supposed to be fighting a swamp, and then what happened? What, the Loch Ness monster, which is Israel, rose up and swallowed our hero whole. So it makes me sad, and I think we all can very clearly see what has happened on the basis of who is now supporting him. The literal Never Trump movement is now supporting Trump and telling us that we're radicals, the people who initially supported Trump. So there's been a complete flip, and they're trying to use this mechanism of psychology to convince us, oh, we just got here, but we noticed this rot, which is the original MAGA movement. It's completely ridiculous. Their tactics aren't working, but I think it also indicates to us that there is something very scary and sinister that is in DC, right? That turns good men, it like petrifies good men that go in maybe with the best of intentions. And then they see something else. Like, what happens to these people? We don't know. Like, day in and day out, Kash Patel and Dan were saying, we're going to do this. We get to the FBI. Now they look petrified. They look petrified, actually. There's nothing here, actually, to see about these Epstein files. What are you talking about? You kind of made your show off of what needed to happen with the Epstein files. So it's sad.
So if you were to rate them, because people have asked me this question, so now I get to ask someone else. What grade would you give them right now at this point based on, obviously the Epstein files, I agree with you. It's a huge debacle. It's going to probably be a huge negative in his legacy at the end of the day. If you had to grade his presidency so far within, what, we're 11 months in roughly, what would you say?
So I would say I'm biased. So if you're asking me to grade, you know how you would have those teachers where if you would take a test and they would automatically flunk you if you didn't put your name on the paper?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. The Epstein thing for me is like automatic flunk if you don't put your name on the paper, right?
Gotcha.
So if I'm a mom now, so this was the most important thing to me, was figuring out where the pedophiles are in our society. And
that was your number one voting.
This for me, becoming a mother, because you have to remember Epstein, and I did a partial series, a mini series on what we discovered about him. He just got pulled through the ranks, right? Bankrupted Americans. Same thing with the Maxwell family, bankrupted people in England, and was allowed to do this. He had absolutely no background. He was given access to children. He had an office on Harvard campus despite only having a high school diploma, which I can't even verify his high school diploma, if I'm being honest with you. And this was going to show us everything. He had access to Hollywood. He was working with Weinstein. He had some notorious fight with Harvey Weinstein right before Harvey went down. So now I'm kind of going back in my mind and thinking that's a question I should probably ask Harvey Weinstein, is what they were fighting about. And he had access to models. I mean, this man was just handed the keys to Les Wexner's empire, which even how that empire started has got a shady story, with a guy who said that Les Wexner was the literal devil. He was the guy who controlled Victoria's Secret. He said, this man is evil. And then suddenly that guy jumps off the Golden Gate Bridge and decides to give his company to Les Wexner. That doesn't really make sense. So we had this rare opportunity to really understand how the Matrix was put together, in my view. And Trump took us to this line and then balked. And I'm not sure why he did. Okay. Maybe it's because he almost survived an assassination attempt. He survived an assassination attempt.
Yeah. Two of them. And maybe they put him in a room and said, here's how it's going to go. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to try not to judge him because I don't know what he is going through. But for me, the Epstein files was a name on the paper. So what are your thoughts on the current news? Because it just resurfaced again. They're, in the process right now of getting everything classified. I understand that there were a bunch of emails that came out. And it's coming back up again. I can tell because I'm seeing nothing but CNN clips on it. Anytime they love to hit Trump when it comes to this Epstein thing. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on the latest information that came out recently with the emails and everything else like that?
When he initially balked on discussing Epstein and Pam Bondi did the whole crazy bit, I was told that it was because there was donors he was protecting, and that makes sense to me. I have never felt, and I'm a pretty good vibe person, Trump's not into kids, right? Mm-hmm. So the nature of the emails, was he at a party when people should just think about that. When people say, oh, they exchange, like he was on his plane, never on the island, but like was on the plane, or was it a party? If you were at you live in Miami. If you were at a party, the idea that somebody could be at any club that you are at, or any party that you are at, has somebody that's underage and looks like she could be 18, and that doesn't really track to me as any evidence of anything other than the fact that he was at a party once, and Jeffrey Epstein was very clearly running a sophisticated network and a blackmail ring. So I don't think that whatever they have on Epstein with Trump and Epstein is going to implicate Trump in any of that stuff. Yeah. And I've been around him. Trump has a type, and I have never felt that vibe from him at all. But I do think he's protecting some of his donors. I do believe that, because I look at them and they just creep me out. And he took a lot of money from Miriam Adelson, the Adelson family, hundreds of millions of dollars from Miriam Adelson. And I think that's kind of the beginning of everything. So when they started leaking these emails, I read it as like a public threat to him. Maybe they're arguing about something in the background and he's holding the line on something. So because they obviously have all the Epstein stuff. He was their blackmail guy, And so if people don't listen, they probably do a little trickle. That's how I read it. I read it as like a public threat, and they want something from him, and they're going to be like, capitulate or we will hit you with everything they have. And we need to have a leader that just comes right out in a press conference and says, they have this about me. They've been threatening me with it. I'm going to tell them to release everything, and I'm going to hold the line. People would cheer. We wouldn't even care. We'd be like, okay, like as long as you're not implicated in harming children, right? I can deal with you being at a party that Epstein was at and finding out that whatever it is that they have on you. That's my gut instinct about the whole thing.
Yeah, no, I agree with you that I think he doesn't give me the vibe that he's like doing that type of thing with children. But I do think that maybe there's something in there that looks really bad optically. And that's might be why, or to protect donors, like you said. Because I look at it like if there was something really bad like that, the Democrats would have exposed that during the Biden administration if there really was. So, you know, that's another thing as well. Speaking of the Zionist lobby, we're talking about Mary Mandelson and Epstein and everything else like that. Last time we spoke, you were literally like a week or two before you left Daily Wire. It's been a while now. And obviously a lot of things have transpired, right? You've had a meteoric rise. Congratulations. Meanwhile, your opposition, Ben Shapiro, has had a meteoric downfall. Can you kind of take me through that day of what happened when, because I remember you had been in Miami for a bit, and then I think you might have went back to Daily Wire for like a day or two, and then they said, hey, we're going to get rid of you, blah, blah, blah. Can you kind of take me through how that all transpired and how you've been able to kind of use that cancellation from their perspective to just utterly destroy them and flip the roles?
So, gosh, I was fired in, what was it, March of 2024, and I obviously was very surprised about it. I did not know it was coming. Look, even if I sensed it was coming, I would have never have thought that it would have happened in the way that it happened. I would have thought that we would do everything that we can to keep things friendly. I mean, you don't want to work for any company. It's just unprofessional to want to work, to dedicate years of your life to any company and not have things, even if they're not on great terms, you still want to make it as peaceful as possible.
TMZ reported, and I have to ask you this because I've always been wanting to ask you this. They reported that one of the reasons why they wanted to get rid of you is because you did the show with us. And when we talked about Jews, we hit the sound effect, the cha-ching sound effect, and that, I guess that infuriated Ben Shapiro. Is that true? Or
I know where that leak came from.
Okay.
And it came, gosh, am I allowed to say anything about this? She no longer works for the Daily Wire, and I think she was behind that leak. Yeah, so she no longer works for the Daily Wire. So that was interesting. I can neither confirm or deny whether or not that is true.
Okay.
But what I will say is I would have never expected that sort of a PR. I mean, it's just the opposite of the way that I am. I mean, I've worked with several companies. I've worked with PragerU. I have obviously a lot of disagreements with them now, but I had a very peaceful working relationship with them. They treated me fantastically. I've said this 1,000 times. Like, what I think about them now and what their contributions are to what we're fighting, I could never go back and say like one bad word about how they treated me. They were really good employers and very communicative. I ever had an issue. I mean, I think my contract with PragerU was like 2 pages. I'm not even kidding. It was crazy. Marissa never even wanted to talk about contracts. She's like, if we ever have to talk about the contract, she was like, you should probably leave because like I don't want you here if you're not happy.
Yeah.
Obviously had a very great relationship with Charlie Kirk, Turning Point USA. So for me, having never had any sort of a debacle ever in my life, in terms of working for people, it was new, it was global, there was so much happening, and I didn't know if we were going to survive it. Genuinely, my husband and I, it felt like it's like trench warfare. Your every move, you're not even thinking about the implications. It's like, I just have to put one foot in front of the other and fight. And I first and foremost just grateful to God that my husband was just rock solid. I think if my husband had shown even a fraction of apprehension, fear, anything, I probably would have come apart. And this again gets back to the importance of marriage, because there are things that men are designed to deal with. Women are designed, like I was good on the psychology games of what they were trying to do, but in terms of just getting down and building the infrastructure and like, okay, we need to rebuild the podcast. We got to do this. We got to figure this out. We laugh now. I mean, even because my team came with me, which was something that was also a huge blessing. I'm so grateful to my team, because I went to them and I was like, I don't know if this is going to work. We can't offer you health insurance. We have nothing. So if you leave the comfort of where you are taking a risk. Yeah. And we don't know where this thing is going to end. And also we're like being banned from society also. Yeah. So the chances of this podcast working when we're banned from everywhere, even YouTube demonetized us, it was slim to none. And they were just like, we're coming with you. So to look back on that, it's just a tremendous amount of gratitude and appreciation for the audience, my team, and first and foremost, my husband, you know. So he helped you through that process. Because I remember like it was all over the place, and you know, obviously there was an enormous amount of pressure, but you were able to use that to your favor. You get let go from Daily Wire, you start up your own thing. And, you know, obviously this topic is a very controversial topic when it comes to Zionism, Jewish power, and these other things.
and it led to some things. What red pilled you on this topic that made you say, I got to speak up? Even though this is a very taboo topic, you could get, you know, like you said, deal with demonetization, cancellation, losing an employer. What made you say, I got to speak up on this?
I want to get into heaven. And I think people don't realize that that's real. Like, I think people who are atheists don't understand that a part of this whole psych operation was to make you an atheist. Because if you knew for certain that when you die, there is more, which there is, you would be living your life differently, right? I want to get into heaven. And so at the very moment that I know anything is true, I can't tell a lie, right? So when I was working, and giving the example again for PragerU, I genuinely, first off, wasn't up on the topic of Israel. It wasn't kind of a common discussion. There was no pressure on me to get out there and say things that are pro-Israel. I just genuinely believed it, in the same way that I tell people Charlie Kirk just believed it. There's no conspiracy. He just was like, yeah, Israel, I'm a Christian, and obviously Israel has biblical connotations, and so I support Israel, almost like it's a periphery.
Yeah, it's like a default setting.
Yeah,
when
it's
you're
a default setting. Yeah,
literally. Yeah, in the
it's a factory
GOP
setting.
Yeah,
and people who attack that and assume that everyone's in on an agenda should stop doing that. At the moment that it kind of became and I would say after October 7th, they were kind of demanding that you take a side. I watched Bassem Youssef. This was truly the mental turning point for me. He went on to Piers Morgan and it went viral. And he held up this paper where he showed how many deaths there were every year of Palestinians versus Israelis. And I will never unsee that. And he was being totally a jackass about it, was just kind of using humor, which is the best tool, and being like, so what's the equation of how many lives are worth? So I'm going, okay, so I'm supposed to believe these are the evil people, but this is how many people. And then I had Norm Finkelstein on my show at the Daily Wire, because I was like, let me go to someone who actually is not an anti-Semite, right? His parents survived the Holocaust, and he's a professor who was denied tenure for a ridiculous reason because he is committed to telling the truth about Gaza, and he wrote so many books on it. And that to me was like, wow.
So that like red pilled you on the topic, like seeing the deaths and everything, because no one ever sees like the Palestinian perspective, because it's like almost like in America, well, especially if you're a conservative, the default setting is we support Israel unequivocally every single time, and you never even hear the other perspective. So, and I've said that too, like October 7th kind of opened up this discussion, whereas like I remember before it, like if you talked about it, you would get demonetized, banned. That's what got me demonetized was that topic, especially before October 7th. So you start talking about it. I remember you had debated a rabbi, I can't remember his name.
A couple of them. There was Rabbi Shmuley, and then there was
that idiot and the other one.
Who was? Oh gosh, I have to remember his name. He was my favorite. Candace.
Yeah,
this is the worst anti-Semitism. He actually was low key my favorite because he was so over the top.
Oh yeah,
he was so over the top, and he was like, "You can't even say what was it? Witches." Skylar, what was the name of that rabbi? Barclay. Rabbi Barclay. That was his name.
And I think that was one of your last debates you did on Daily Wire too. I think you were still on the Daily Wire there. Did Ben ever like have a conversation with you about this, if you could disclose it? Like
no.
he just like never talked to you in person about this. He just like trashed you. Because I remember seeing a clip of him like at some type of social gathering, like late in the year of that year, saying, "Oh yeah, I think what she's doing is, you know, despicable, blah blah blah." But he had never had a conversation with you.
No, and after that, we never had a conversation.
Wow.
So that happened, and that's we never had a conversation after that. So
he didn't even have the decency to like figure out, hey, you know, what's going on here, have a conversation. You're just like,
I tried.
Yeah.
It never happened. So
wow. Okay. So you got banned from Australia. Right? You got banned from Australia.
It's like gangster.
Yeah.
Almost,
and
right?
I was like, you know,
super bad.
Because people try to tell me like, you know, because I talk about world Jewry being a thing and how, you know, it's an international cabal that works together, you know, for the betterment of Israel, and they're located all across the world. And I use that example of how they got you literally banned in Australia, even though they represent like 2% of the population. How did that even happen? Like, how'd you get notified? Like, yeah, how'd that even come about?
I was going to tour in Australia, and the Zionist lobby found out, and they publicly posted. It was like the Zionist Organization of Australia, maybe it was ZOA, publicly posted this thing.
Like their equivalent of AIPAC, right? Essentially.
Yeah, it's another AIPAC. There's so many of Zionist organizations, and I will say on the conservative side of Australia, the Jewish conservatives did also write a letter in support of me saying, like, we disagree with her, but she should be allowed to speak. But they were effectively the ADL, and they posted this thing and publicly said that I should not be allowed in. My rhetoric was dangerous. They lied and said that I said that Jews, what did they say that I said? That Jews drink the blood of children, which was, I mean, it's just like completely.
The blood libel?
It was unbelievable. I mean, the way that came about was me liking a tweet, literally a like of a tweet of a person who called out Rabbi Shmuley and said Rabbi Shmuley had told a huge lie about me. So they were replying to Rabbi Shmuley and said, you didn't include that she, and then like told the truth about what I said. And then they ended their thing with, are you drunk on Christian blood again? So me liking this tweet,
yeah.
They went full media press corps. I mean, it's just unbelievable. Candace says, I'm like, are you kidding me? It was so obvious why I liked this tweet. Like this person debunked Rabbi Shmuley's lie, but this is how they lie.
Yeah.
This is how they lie.
And they take everything literal.
They take
Even
everything
if it's hyperbole
literally,
or whatever, it's like, oh, look at you, vile anti-Semite.
Yeah, and I'm like, obviously I like this tweet because he defended, like he pointed out that Rabbi Shmuley told a ridiculous lie that had nothing to do with anything. Rabbi. Yeah, he said that my followers threatened to kill him or something very serious. And he was like, you're showing this inbox.
And didn't he try to sue you for that?
No, he threatened to sue.
Okay.
And so, yeah, it was quite a time, but they successfully got me banned. I've never been in trouble, nothing. And they decided that I am too dangerous to speak in their country. So that I still think, and this has been my belief, everything that is happening, God wants to happen. So when that happened, it was because Australians needed to understand something about their country. Mm-hmm. Because people who didn't like me, who didn't support me, or weren't conservative in their country kind of looked up and went, why is this like mom of 4 being banned from our country? No matter what I think about her, I certainly don't think she's a threat, that she shouldn't be allowed in. And we've got literally people who have been accused of murder, people who have violated their visas in other countries, people that rap about murder are allowed in here. And you're telling me she's saying something that's so dangerous. And it, I think, contributed to more people listening to my podcast. What is she saying? So I do feel we are in this time where the more that they lie, it rebounds very quickly onto them and it creates more pressure against them. And they can't stop lying. So
yeah, because you can never lie once, right? Like they always say, when you lie once, then you have to keep lying to perpetuate that same lie.
Right.
So New Zealand also banned you, right? And then you were able to how'd you go about being allowed to come back to New Zealand? Did they write a petition or how'd that happen?
No, actually their person, so they have a reciprocal system, which is weird, but if Australia bans you, you get automatically banned in New Zealand. So New Zealand didn't actually ban me. Tony Burke in Australia banned me, and they have some weird reciprocal system. Then when they found out, their minister, and his name was Chris something, I should remember it, was like, I'm just against this, and he reversed it.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so he had the power to reverse it. So New Zealand actually stood firm on free speech.
Okay, I didn't know that. So like basically when one party does something, the other one kind of reciprocates it, but they do have some type of veto power. Mm-hmm. What other ways, I guess, has the Zionist lobby came after you? I've seen ADL articles. I've seen SPLC, right? They target me too.
Oh gosh, it was everything. It was everything.
Did they lobby to get you demonetized on YouTube too?
Absolutely. Yeah, that came from the awesome Jew.
Same. Yep.
The awesome Jew, who was in attendance, by the way, when Charlie got peer pressured in the Hamptons. Mm. And yeah, it was just a full court. They were like, just start mass reporting her for violence and violent rhetoric. And they did that. And then I had no strikes. And then I went to all strikes overnight. And YouTube demonetized us. We were demonetized for 6 months, I think. Mm. It was like September, maybe it was 4 months. And so that was, can't make any money on YouTube. So we had to we had to then build our own website, which we did. Mm-hmm. So what it forces you to do is to become your own power center, right? If you ban people everywhere and you say you can't, you're not allowed to fight in this realm, we're going to start building our own realms. And I think they're learning that lesson, is that there seems to be the opposite thing that's happening. So they would attack us on YouTube. They obviously got petitioned to get me fired, banned from Australia. They went after like my family members. Obviously, they tried to pretend that there was all this friction between me and my husband's father, and that could not be further from the truth. I love my husband's family. They have always treated me very well, but they wanted that narrative out there because it was part of the cancellation is even our own family hates her. No, we have different viewpoints. People can support Israel. People cannot support Israel. You don't marry into ideas.
Yeah, of course. Of course, there's nothing wrong having disagreements. But.
Right. And I'm just thinking what else they attacked. It's been nonstop. And then, of course, the lawsuits, nonstop legal lawfare.
So right now, between you, Tucker, Nick, they're attacking all three of you guys, saying, "Oh, you guys are anti-Semites and you guys are pushing this whole thing." And I give credit because you three have done an incredible job of, awareing the American public on this topic when it comes to Israel's control of the Middle East, what they're doing over there, how they've been able to get away with this for so long, killing people and no one knowing. And they've been targeting you guys quite a bit. And I see that there's been a bunch of drama with Megyn Kelly and Ben Shapiro and everything else like that. What are your thoughts on the on the situation? Because anytime they mention Tucker, you're right there, right? When it comes to the criticism of Israel. Yeah,
even Bibi Netanyahu name checking us was crazy.
Yeah.
On the TikTok thing and why they needed to buy TikTok, they're letting you know this is a psychological operation. That's what they're telling you. They've gone masked down, and they've just come more inward. I have no idea why they kept attaching me to Tucker Carlson. They wanted both of us gone, and
Mark Levin loves you.
Yeah, I know. They force fired Tucker. They force fired me, and then they realized, we can't control them, and we started having to build our own power centers, and they didn't like that.
And they made you guys bigger.
Exactly. So, and then with the Nick Fuentes thing, I promise you, I had never heard the Nick Fuentes backstory until after I was fired from Daily Wire. There was this Twitter audio or X audio space that he did with Jeremy Boring, who at that time was the CEO of Daily Wire. And I heard the backstory and I was like, this is insane, like what happened to him. Nobody can look at that backstory of what happened to him and not realize that it was just evil.
They did everything they can to contain him. It's ridiculous.
It's like he had his life ahead of him. And so you kind of root for that. You're like, no matter how I feel about him, I root for him against the Zionist lobby. And this rule that you can't speak to Nick, why can't I speak to Nick? Can't my audience decide whether or not they want to listen to him? There's this false idea of platforming him, that somehow that's going to be harmful and you can't platform him. If I platform him and Nick seems likable, right? And then he goes on his show and he says horrific things, and my listeners then go over to his show, they're not going to keep listening to Nick.
Yeah.
They're actually then going to have questions about me.
Yeah. Let the people decide.
Let the people decide.
Yeah.
You don't get to think for people.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as platforming ideas. If people are following that idea, that is on the people. And they are smart enough to make their own decisions. I don't need to tell people to listen to Nick, to not listen to Nick, to platform Nick, to not platform Nick. If I want to talk to Nick, I'll talk to Nick. If I don't want to talk to Nick, I don't talk to Nick. And there's something about the true free markets that Zionists can't stand. They're constantly manipulating the markets so that people think that they are number one, and they're not. They actually require censorship in order for them to be number one.
Yeah, and that's their game. And I seeing Ben Shapiro have a meltdown. They had the Republican Jewish Coalition a couple weeks ago, and just saying like, "Oh, these people are platforming whatever." I find it interesting how they never because when if you actually listen to the interviews that you guys do a lot of the times, it's like, "Oh, this makes perfect sense. I understand why you have this worldview." They never criticize what you guys talk about, right? They always criticize you guys directly, saying they're pushing anti-Semitism. Well, what are they saying that's anti-Semitic? Oh, well, it's just anti-Semitic. And they don't even want to have the discussion, the debate,
usually the truth
or anything. Yeah.
Yeah, because when you hear Nick Fuentes' backstory, it's compelling. It just is. I was compelled when I heard it. I actually haven't gotten around to watching his interview with Tucker. It's on my to-do list this weekend, but I'm assuming he told his backstory.
Yep.
And then people look at it and go, what is up with this Zionist lobby that they're going after 18-year-old kids for questioning Israel? That's actually what they're fearful of, is people understanding just how long this has been going on, how vicious it is that it will even go after an 18-year-old who's just asking questions literally. And yeah, I think that's what it is. It's the mass awakening that's happening.
Yeah, no, and I credit you, Tucker, Nick, some of the biggest voices in it, waking people up to this problem that we've had for so long, right? I mean, it got us into wars. And I do think that we're making an impact on it, because I remember when Trump bombed Iran, he had a lot of pressure on him not to do it, right? And he was kind of going back and forth. I know Steve Bannon had went to the White House and told him don't do it, or at least push it off a little bit. And he bombed him, and then he ended it there, right? Who knows if he didn't have that pressure from his base to not go to war, if he would have expanded the conflict, because we know Israel wanted to, right? If this was 2003, who knows if we wouldn't have just gone into a full-on war. But I think big voices in social media that we didn't have back in 03 were able to kind of pressure like, hey, we voted for no wars. Like, and then it kind of forced them to be like, I want to keep the base. All right, just bomb them and get out of here. Because that was even very unpopular.
And then you saw the neocons go, oh, you were panicking. It was just going to be and the whole time you guys were just panicking and it was just one response. You thought there was going to be a broader war. And John Miller put it quite succinctly he tweeted and he said, no, it's because we panicked and freaked out that this didn't happen. This is like saying a robber's outside trying to rob your house. Your dogs start barking and the robber goes away. And they're like, oh, you were just panicking. It's like, no, it's because the dogs were barking that this thing didn't happen. So no, every time which by the way, he still wants his war with Iran. They still want a regime change in Iran. And we have to continue to bark and continue to say that it's not okay. And it worked because we held the line on it and used our platforms to say, this is the red line. Yeah, no wars. And he literally was very ambiguous about it for days. So, and I think a big part of that is from all the pressure from his base with people that have big platforms. And this is kind of a beautiful thing where we have with alternative media, because I remember, and you remember too, we're right around the same age, the Iraq war, there was no dissent. Right. We're going and nobody cares. And we don't, there was no one else talking about it. The news was super pro-war. Everyone wanted to go to war. And it wasn't until 10, 15 years later that the smoke evaporated and we're like, oh, this was a waste of time. Why did we go to, Saddam has nothing to do with bin Laden. Like, it didn't make sense. So let me ask you about, I guess, real quick with Harvey Weinstein, what got you interested in like getting his story out there? So actually, I started working on the Harvey Weinstein documentary when I was at the Daily Wire, which, So somebody on his team reached out to me because they thought that I would be the only person that would look at this fairly, which is interesting because obviously he's gave millions to the ADL. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So we were this very unlikely duo and I thought he was guilty. I thought there had to have been some guilt. I mean, there were so many women that were coming out. But this is how the media is effective at psychology, is that they know if they say something over and over again, it becomes true. And actually, I realized I didn't know anything about the case. And when I took a look at it, I was shocked. There is no question that Harvey Weinstein should not be in prison right now. And that's the definition of MeToo right there. Yeah, they took him out. Yeah. Who took him out? Why they took him out? That part still is not clear to me, but it should terrify any woman, especially me who has 3 sons, that they can do that. I think Me Too, what it represented was hostile takeovers of companies. That's kind of a theme, right? If you start to go back, you look at from Michael Jackson to Kanye to Britney Spears, these are hostile takeovers of companies. And I think Me Too was a proliferation where they hostilely took over a bunch of companies. And that's my instinct about it. And he was big. So maybe he wasn't playing ball. I actually do now have it on my mind that I want to ask him about this argument he had with Jeffrey Epstein that I learned about. I was very passionate about just telling the truth because the Me Too movement is problematic. I have a real investment in this. I have sons. Yeah. So I don't care what people think or need to think. I'm not voting for him to be my husband. I'm not voting for him to be the president of the United States. I'm not voting for him to be my pastor. I'm telling you that he was accused of something and the media completely lied to you about the circumstances. And it should terrify you because it means that our courts are corrupted. And they are. We know that. We know our courts are corrupted. Why? Maybe through the same system of blackmail. They've got judges in their pockets. But there is, that's a part of the matrix. The court system is a part of it. And I give you credit because, you're very brave for doing that, because just like with the George Floyd documentary that you did, which was going against the grain, right? A lot of people gave you slack for that. Like, oh, why are you interviewing this, pervert? And why are you going ahead and, trying to destroy the legacy of George Floyd? So, I give you a lot of credit for because I do think that this whole Me Too situation and false accusations is very real. It matters. Athletes and professionals are constantly getting accused of stuff. I mean, we can look at what's going on with Andrew Tate, where, it's like every other month, something is getting dropped, or a lawsuit is being dropped here, or they're finding out that this woman lied here, or there was I think a pro soccer player that recently got out after having his life destroyed. So this Me Too thing is a huge problem in the Western world. So let me ask you this with Charlie Kirk, because you're definitely one of the most outspoken people when it comes to the Charlie Kirk investigation and what's going on there. Obviously, you knew him personally. You guys have worked together for many years. I'll kind of just turn it to you, and you could just tell me, because you've been looking at this for a while now. It's almost it's over 2 months now. Can you take us through what you think happened on that day? What led you to believe that? And the timeline in general, who you think is actually responsible, who might be covering things up and everything like that. Yeah, so I can tell you that I view the Charlie Kirk assassination as a military hit. I do not know who called the hit yet, but it's military. There's no question in my mind that it was a military.
Or foreign, or?
Well, I don't view the U.S. military as being controlled by the U.S. I mean, there are a lot of people we've been globalized for a very long time. I don't know that there's a difference there's decisions that are made in Ukraine for America. I mean, this is the tentacles of the U.S. military.
Yep.
It's a much broader and longer conversation that needs to be had. I mean, I think since JFK was assassinated, I don't know who's in control of anything, right? Much of what we see in the political realm is just an illusion. We're talking about what's happening in Congress, and decisions are made in boardrooms, in my view. With Charlie, I think that with everything that I have uncovered, there was very clearly a faith infiltration that happened. And I'm putting faith in quotation marks, because Charlie would have believed the people that came to him and told him to grow the organization and, to become the boots on the ground for faith. He cared very deeply about his faith. And the cast of characters and the pastors that are around him, rotten, like very rotten. The McCoys, Rob McCoy, unbelievably rotten. And I've been covering a lot with him. And what it's looking like is that Calvary Chapel has been accused of tons in the past, and also accused of hostilely taking over well-meaning faith organizations and ministries, with Rob McCoy at the center of some of these scandals. It's looking to me like Turning Point's apparatus provided an opportunity. Now, who they're actually working for, what they're actually doing, I don't know. But I can tell you it is not about Jesus Christ, okay?
Okay.
And this would explain why, for some unknown reason, Christian Zionist influencers have been losing their minds about the idea of investigating the Charlie Kirk assassination. It's odd. Like, I looked up and I'm going, why are Christian Zionists trying to use Bible verses to say that we shouldn't question anything? I mean, everybody knows you were a cop.
Mm-hmm.
The first thing you do when there's been a murder is to look around at the money, the finances, and the people around him. Common sense. Like, and then you pair that with the actual impossible things that they are telling us. It was a Christian miracle. His neck just stopped a 30-06 from 150 yards away. It was just your modern Christian miracle, That's Fed slop, but it's worse than that. It's Christian slop. People using the Bible to psychologically convince you, Jesus performed miracles, and this was just one of them. Charlie loved his faith. They're lying about weird stuff. I consider it a clue that they are lying about where Charlie was at in terms of his faith journey. They lied about the Hampton Summit. They lied about the fact that he had said, I have no choice but to abandon the pro-Israel cause. I just watched them all lie because I needed to see where all the stakes were. These are weird lies.
Yeah.
The one thing that connects all of these lies is faith. So that's where the focus of my investigation is right now. And I'm coming up, looking and going, all of these characters are dirty that were around him. So you're not going to hold up a Bible like a false prophet and tell me not to look here, or else I'm going to be condemned to hell. Because let me tell you how the Bible works, okay? Christ is king. What that means is truth is king. And if anybody is using the Bible to tell you not to pursue truth, you are dealing with somebody who is manipulating you.
Who do you think, I know you said the people around him, but who do you think is the most responsible? Why would they want him gone?
I think Charlie was not allowed to be anything but a Christian Zionist. And he was changing in the last few weeks. When I look at the timeline that I put together, some weird stuff, this Egyptian plane that was started tracking him, everything began ratcheting up after Tucker Carlson hit the stage. And in
July.
Mm-hmm,
Oh yeah, I was there for that. Yeah.
Yeah. That
pissed him off.
That was a something.
Yeah.
So I think Charlie was done, as Megan showed the video. He was telling Tucker to go max. All of the things that they lied about, we've now proven. And why were they lying about it? That's why this is the thing. Why lie if you have nothing to cover up? That's my common sense here. You only lie because you have something to cover up. No matter what the lie is, you only lie because there's something that you're hiding. So if they had all come out right when Charlie died, If Seth Dillon, who pressed Charlie in the Hamptons, was like, oh my gosh, my biggest regret is the last time I saw Charlie, I was being such a jerk about the Israel. They were so stupid. And this is a reminder that you never know when you're going to see somebody last. It would have been like, oh, okay, nothing to see here. It was like a full court press effort to lie about everything. Josh Hammer, he never blinked on Israel. He was on the text message chain where Charlie said 48 hours before he died that he was done with the pro Israel cause. Why lie? That's my question. And I don't like the silence from Turning Point employees. I know for a fact one of them, I'm not going to name, has a text message from Charlie the day before he died saying, they are going to kill me.
Wow.
Now, he was not referring to the trans lobby when he wrote that message.
Yeah.
So why not present, if you are his friend and you're interested in the truth, why wouldn't you tell the public that? Wouldn't you just come right out to the public and say, hey, I don't know what happened, but like Charlie thought they were going to kill him. I do not like the way Turning Point is behaving. I've made that clear. And nobody is going to emotionally manipulate me and tell me that it's all good now. And to attack Turning Point would be to attack his legacy.
Mm-hmm.
Charlie told me years ago that he had, which I shared the messages, he was having a ton of visions and was telling me that Turning Point was going to be the death of him. He knew he was going to die young. And strangely knew that I was going to be the only person to defend him, right? I showed the messages.
Yeah.
I showed the messages.
They tried to say it was fake and you pulled it up and yeah.
So we're here. We're here now. And I'm going to defend him. I'm going to figure out what happened.
What are your thoughts on how Erika Kirk has been dealing with this and some of the people that are close to him, his manager, Mike and all them? Like, do you think they're just playing a role? Do you think they're involved? What are your thoughts on them in general? Some of the people in his closest circle.
It is obvious to me that Mikey McCoy was the person that they wanted to launch as the new Charlie. That's very obvious. The way they brought his YouTube channel back with a speech from Mikey, and everyone was kind of trying to soft sell Mikey to us and was like, who's this kid? First off, you're 23. Why are you the chief of staff of anything? You didn't go to college. Who are you actually? And you're brought in by Rob, your dad, who is dirty. I mean, very dirty guy. I covered more of that yesterday. He just gives me the sleaze and the ick. And it just is very strange that I felt like they tried to manipulate us into accepting this, almost like they had like, Mikey's going to be this person. Then we see Mikey, he's a hero, and he just walks away right after somebody. Like, that doesn't make any sense to me. And yeah, with Erika, a lot of people on the internet have been going into her past, going into her parents' past, and just speaking about these things.
Israel defense contractors, parents, stuff like that.
Yeah, I've seen all of that. I respond to that on my show, and what I've said to everybody is I'm starting with what happened on that day, what happened leading up to his assassination, and the people that catch my attention are people who are telling verifiable lies. Okay, Erika thus far has not told any verifiable lies. She did not lie about the fact that he had St. Michael on him when he died. So there's two things. She could be on autopilot, and some people could be reading that the wrong way and thinking, oh, well, she's not acting right. Okay. Is she on autopilot because she fears something? Right. Again, we don't know what's happening behind the scenes, but you have to have some level of fear if you watch somebody get assassinated. I don't know. I just don't know.
Yeah.
And so people have been upset with me for not going, down the rabbit hole on my show about Erika's parents. People's parents are people's parents. They haven't yet come up in my investigation. If I find out that her parents were involved, and then it's going to catch my investigation. And there's nobody that will be spared once they come up, once they tell a lie, once I come across something. I just literally have not come across anything with Frank Turek. Also, I haven't come across anything with Erika in my investigation. So.
The shooter, or the alleged shooter, you think they're a patsy?
Of course, they're a patsy. I mean, come on, it's so dumb. He wasn't even on campus that day. They can't show us one clear image, not even one. All of these cameras, Turning Point has everything in 4K. So shouldn't you have caught the shooter on the roof in 4K? Like, you had cameras everywhere that day. Every inch of that campus is covered.
So do you think that was someone else that was running across?
Absolutely.
It wasn't Tyler?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Someone that just, I don't even know if there was a person that sprinted that day, because everyone's forgetting. There was also a news report that came out a week before that somebody was on the roof, and a professor came out and waved the person. Now, they may have been dropping off a gun, dropping off a screwdriver. I don't know.
Because there is one video, like one of the students had panned out where he was running.
But that person who took that video that I had to track down,
okay,
military.
Really?
Everybody's military in the story.
Really? So the person that captured that, because I remember when it first broke out, that cell phone footage got released where the shot goes off and for some odd reason he's looking at the roof and you see like a little speck running on the top. So that person that took that video was military.
I got in touch with the person and they didn't put the video up themselves. I had to go through 3 people. I'm like, so I'm supposed to believe you're like a college kid and you have nothing to do with anything. You just decided to randomly like be like, oh, I got this video, but I'm gonna send it through 3 people to have it released.
Interesting.
And also the Losey building where the shot definitely did not come from is the only place on campus that houses, I believe on the 3rd floor, according to my source, like the military something is in the Losey building. So there's a lot happening. All of that was just a show to mask who the real shooter was. I think it's way more likely that the shooter was in the audience or to the side of the audience. I think that's the more likely story because he wasn't shot with a 30-06 first and foremost, and the bullet did not destroy his neck. I know that for a fact. And he actually
30-06 throws everybody off. Like,
but that was their plan.
Yeah.
Until I accidentally, which I didn't even process it at the time, revealed that the bullet didn't go through.
Yeah.
And then they kind of were like, oh, it was just a miracle. Actually, it was no 30-06.
Yeah, the text messages are a bit strange too. And, you know, this whole situation, like, I wish the government was being a bit more transparent because this has an incredible amount of public interest. So it's like, look, dude, you guys probably should be more transparent on this because government trust is down at its lowest when it comes to people trusting law enforcement, whatever. What are your thoughts on how the FBI and the state police are handling this in general? Because I know you've been critical of Kash Patel.
I think what's way more important is trusting Alexis Wilkins as a sensational singer and the people like,
be careful, she might sue you.
Like, I don't want to talk about like the feds right now. Like they're doing what they have to. The more important thing is that this sensational country singer is left alone. We are just not a serious nation. I mean, I think if Putin's FBI director or put that out, Putin would just quietly have him assassinated or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
But we're just not a serious nation. That is just, they are tweeting like girls on TikTok right now. And it's embarrassing. It is so embarrassing. He should have been forced to resign. Trump should have made him resign for embarrassing us because there's no way Putin's not laughing with his homies right now about that tweet. My girlfriend, my life partner.
Yeah.
She
sued a bunch of people. It's crazy.
Crazy.
Yeah.
And obviously with his blessing. With his blessing, or you would say, hey, honey, not now.
Yeah.
Right?
Like, this is a bad time.
This is a bad time. I've got to be taken as a serious man.
Optically, yeah.
Yeah. And of course, the opposite thing happens now where everyone's now calling her a honeypot. And so what's she going to do? Like whack-a-mole, just sue everybody on the internet who's making a joke, sue Tim Dillon or something?
Yeah, it's absolutely nuts. So it'd be fair to say, so you don't believe the official narrative, and I do agree with you, there's a lot of problems with it, right? Between a 30-06, why don't we have the full footage of him taking the shot, then running off? You are only showing him running. The text messages are strange.
They don't even show us him taking the shot.
Yeah,
that seems like a pretty easy thing to do.
That's one of my biggest issues is they didn't show him taking a shot, but they have him running across the roof. So it's like, how do you not have him prone shooting the shot? So I guess, and I know you're still investigating and figuring everything out, but if you can kind of give me a quick summary, what do you think transpired in that day? Who do you think is responsible? Maybe a rough timeline. I know you're still filling parts in, but from what you have so far, what do you think?
So this is a guess, and this is just like, if I had to guess right now where I'm at, and this, I think Tyler Robinson's only contribution was that he had his prints on the gun. I know that his prints were not the only prints that were on the gun, which is something that they haven't been honest about.
Okay.
I would suspect that his only
screwdriver
role,
DNA on that too and stuff.
Yeah, I think Lance Twiggs is much more involved. I don't think he took the shot either, but I think he's more involved. I think that Tyler Robinson's, all of these people that were involved that day got swept up in pedophile stuff. From George Zinn, the guy that cheered, his father is also a pedophile. The guy next, I mean, the whole thing is like, it was an operation with blackmailed people.
The Zinn guy was at 9/11 too. Weird.
Yeah. I mean, just unbelievable. And again, more of a marker that this was like a blackmail operation. Also, Zinn told a nurse that he was being paid. He didn't know how he was going to be paid for doing that after. So he was supposed to be another patsy. And
yeah, because it was like immediate. Like he got like when this all broke out, he got arrested and he was like, it was out in the news like immediately.
Multiple people involved that day. One person maybe just supposed to run across the rooftop. Another, I think Tyler Robinson, all his job was to pick up clothes. I think literally he didn't set foot on campus that day. And his job was to get rid of the clothes next to the Dairy Queen into some cemetery, which I broke. And the FBI is not disputed, but they decided to monitor the Dairy Queen afterwards and send some feds there. And yeah, so his role was to pick up clothes. I think Lance is actually the one that's walking in the backpack. But
the TMZ
in
footage?
the maroon. Yep. I think that's Lance.
The TMZ footage,
and I don't know who is walking up the stairs. I think that's a whole different person because they don't even look like they have the same body.
Okay.
And yeah, that's how you do a nice feather operation. You got a bunch of patsies doing different roles.
And then it shows the video of the stairway footage either, which is another thing that's strange.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Well, no, I mean, I see there's a lot of, and I said it before, they've created more questions than answers.
Right.
Right. Which is obviously the problem here. But I know we're short for time here. So I'll just, where can people find you?
I mean, everywhere.
Yeah, you're everywhere.
Yeah, at your
Congratulations on
local
podcast,
courthouse, your local courthouse being sued. If you'd like to find me, your local news station being called anti-Semite.
Oh, one last thing. Do you think, because I know Turning Point, they had said something about, we're going to go after anyone that's saying anything. Have they reached out to you at all or contacted you? Because you're probably one of the most outspoken critic of what's going on with this investigation.
Happy to have any person at Turning Point on my show to discuss anything that I'm saying, to make any corrections about anything that I'm saying. They can make a statement for all I care. I'm not going to stop investigating this until we're told something that makes sense, makes rational sense. And you're not going to tell me, like you do with Israel, that I'll get into heaven if I just ignore how Charlie Kirk was killed. We're not going to play that game. So say something that makes sense, or you have an enemy of me. That's pretty much it. And if you didn't want people prying into this narrative, maybe you shouldn't have executed him publicly.
Yeah.
Maybe you should have pretended he choked on an egg or something, like you did with that rapper a long while back when he started asking questions about things. Not a good idea to get everyone emotionally invested in the story and then to tell them to shut off their emotions.
No, I mean, you've been doing an incredible job of putting a lot of pressure on them, right? So hopefully we, get answers here, because what they have out right now just simply doesn't make sense. So,
right.
So thank you so much, Candace. I appreciate it.
Thank you. So great.
Yeah.
And also thank you for being so patient, because I know my schedule's so crazy with so many kids. And so it's like, we just got to make it happen. I was like, just get them down here.
Yeah, you're a mom, you have a family, so I totally understand it. So thank you so much.
Anytime.